Just a reminder, just to put your phones on silent. I'm the one sending out the text messages, reminding folk. So your phone's gonna be going off.
I was laughing. My phone, every time it rings, my computer rings, my tablet rings, my phone, everything rings.
All right, guys, we are live.
Hello, everyone. I am Pastor O'Shane Winter, and we want to welcome you to another hour of the Edification Hour, where information is power. And we're going to be dealing with a very interesting and serious topic today, and that is, how does the education system affect both minorities and the African American community? And so today we have a few panelists. We have Elder Joe Sminnick, a electrician by trade, one of the elders at the New Community Church. We have Elder Ian Francis, our co-host. And then today we also have two guest panelists, Sister Alicia Jones from Houston, Texas, and we have Sister Whitney Bailey, who is also joining us from Houston, Texas, my former hometown. And so I'm going to allow them just to quickly give you a quick briefing of who they are and what they do. So we'll start with Sister Bailey.
Good afternoon. Happy Sabbath, everyone. My name is Whitney Bailey. I am in the Houston area. I'm currently a math specialist here in the Houston area. So I get to serve students who have some of the most severe needs and some of the greatest learning gaps in math, and as well as supporting teachers in how to make learning relevant for their student and make sure that it coincides with what's going on in real life. So I get to have a lot of fun in my job, and I love doing what I do. I'm supporting the students, the teachers as they support the students.
All right, excellent. And Mrs. Jones?
Jones Lumbus, and I teach in Houston area as well. I used to teach in Florida and moved here to Houston, so I've been teaching over 23 years. I'm currently a content lead for the district, and this school is a charter school is a large charter school, is nationwide. So it's KIPP, Texas, that I teach, and I'm also I work with teachers as well when it comes to making sure that what they're teaching, their curriculum in the classroom is equitable.
All right, excellent. So we're going to just jump right into it today. And that is the dealing with the disparities that we see happening in the African American communities, and how does the education system affect minority students? And so I'm going to kind of throw it out there pretty much. How have you guys seen throughout your experience of teaching, how has the education system affected minority groups?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I think it really depends on what angle you approach that question from. In some ways, the education system, the way we see it today, has had so many great benefits for minority students in helping them to be able to have exposure to new things and even be able to grow in the particular curriculum that is taught. But then in some other ways, we do see that there is a gap, okay, between minority students and their Caucasian counterparts. And so we know that there is an issue that is in there within the current system of education that we have. So to that extent, there are some misses within the education system to which students who are minorities are missing a component of what they need in order to be successful within this current system. So it just depends on how you look at it. There's been some great benefits, but then there's also some lacks.
All right, we are getting a bit of a feedback here. I don't know who may have two things going on at the time, so just be mindful of that. All right, anyone else would like to take a jump at it? Ella Ian, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to allow you to come in earlier. I just got so excited. So if you want to interject and say
something. Yeah, you go out of here. You go out of here.
All right. Anyone else would like to kind of chime in at this time before we get deeper into the subject matter here at hand?
Well, so the question that he asked is a pretty good question, and I wanted to maybe take a step back, and focus on maybe some, how should I put it, um issues, lack of a better word, that leads up, that or issues that have been leading up, you know to the greater problem, which is basically inequity. And I'm sure that the teachers that we have online will agree that there are, in fact, inequity in the education system. So let me just pause right there and just throw it out again to our panelists. First part of that question, would you agree that there are inequities in our system? And if so, do you mind listing a few per your experience?
Okay, there is. And I have noticed also, it depends to the district and also private schools as well, when it comes to inequity. Schools now in certain districts now, schools are pushing to make sure like the classroom is equitable. They're pushing that. But there's some districts that are not, so I've noticed that the districts are the ones that are mostly, white students, in that district. And then in private schools as well, I've noticed that that's not it. They're not discussing that at all. It's like in most of the case, I'm not going to say all of them, but they're not touching that. So some of the things that when it comes to equitable is making sure that the curriculum is not all Eurocentric, making sure that the curriculum also covers the students in your classroom, that they can, connect to it also, not only culturally, but in many different ways, that they can connect. The other thing too is discipline. I've noticed, I have seen that sometimes there's certain students that get a harsher discipline, as we all know, than others, and the way one is spoken to different than the counterparts. So seeing that as well, when it comes to the discipline, and also um, parents connecting to teachers. So that's another area that is the equitable. If I've noticed that some teachers, especially if English is not their second language, or they feel like high, status economically or, academically, it's sometimes some of those parents, they'll be a little bit distant from the school, which of course for the teacher, it makes it a little bit more difficult as well to reach out not only to the parents, but also can make it difficult to make a difference to the child. Um, when really then we both need to partner. But then I've seen parents not even teachers not even making that effort, you know, and that to me is part of being equitable. That child, that parent may be working through many jobs. The teacher has to make that extra step to maybe, even be there even after hours, making special time to connect to the parents. But I'll stop there. And feel like
Wow.
I'm going on too much.
Oh no, that you did that. And I also want to add on too. So taking another step back, talking about equity, because a lot of people, the focus used to be on equality, everybody getting the same thing. We want everything to be the same. That's not what we're going for because it's not what's needed. Equity now is everybody getting what they need in order to be successful. And so there are a lot of schools or districts or states that are trying to make initiatives in order to pursue equity within the education system and doing things like cultural competence so that you can get an idea of other cultures or be mindful of how that how that plays out in the classroom, because in order to help give everybody what they need in order to be successful, you have to first understand what they need in order to be successful. And so a lot of this comes with, do you understand the population that you're working with, and all of the devices that are working against them or with them? Like, how do you support them if you don't understand who they are as a people? And so I think a lot of the issues that we have as far as the disparities and the gap is because for so long, education has not stopped to say, who are these kids as a people? What is their background? Let's put that into the system, because there has been more of a Eurocentric curriculum that has been, shared with states, with the government, in order to teach. And we know that curriculum does not support the narrative of what actually happened many times, as well as the needs of our children. And so we keep on seeing this inequity growing and growing. And then speaking about discipline, um, there is this idea out there, the school to prison pipeline. And it is a prominent idea for a reason, because it's real. There is a direct connection between how children fare in school and the population of children that end up in, well, soon to be adults that end up in prison. They start making decisions on how many prisons to build based off of third and fourth grade scores in academics. That's how they make the decision. They're already making plans for our children from when they are 7, 8, 9 years old. And so when we look at how children are being treated in schools, it builds into who they are and what they think of themselves, because children will believe anything that you tell them about themselves. So when you start telling children that they are liars or thieves because they stole a pencil, and yes, you did do that, then they start to believe that about themselves, and it starts to eat into who they are as a person. And then the referrals, there is a disparity with the discipline referral system. There are so many, see, I'm about to go off now. There are so many ambiguous referral codes that we see, such as disrespect. Well, what does that mean? Oh, well, that child was talking in class. Well, I see one referral. Who were they talking to? I should see at least 2 referrals then. So for some reason, some students, usually Black males, are more visible when it comes to disciplinary issues. And so they often comprise at least 80% of referrals for a school, when we know that Black males are not 80% of the school population.
So let me ask you. I mean, this is hot here. I mean, because some will argue that our students are the ones that act out the most, with the most behavioral issues, and so that student there, is really the one who is, causing disruption. I mean, how would you respond to something like that?
So, I used to work in this area as well. And in any school I've gone into, any school I've worked at, I've always taken a position within the discipline management system, which is whatever they do in order to help students learn how do we behave while we're in school, and to, enforce and reinforce that system. So in participating in those groups where we are looking at disciplinary records, the conversation often comes up. We see that Black males are overrepresented in this disciplinary record here. There's 75, 85, 80% of the students who are getting referrals, or 80% of the referrals belong to Black males. So we either have to agree and say, we truly believe that Black males are 80% of the school's disciplinary problems. We have to be able to explicitly say that we truly believe they are a problem. They truly are offensive and disrespectful and all of those other things. Or we have to stop and say, for some reason, they are more visible when it comes to their actions, or the things that they do seem to be more offensive to the perceiver. We have to decide, do we truly believe they are that much of a problem, or do we need to look at ourselves and get an idea of why do we see them to be a problem? Who's there? And for every school I've been in, and we've had that conversation, they eventually sit back. Nobody wants to say, I truly believe that Black males are 80% of the disciplinary problems. Nobody wants to say that, even if somebody believes that. And so then we take a hard look at, why is it that they are so visible, or why is it that when they stand up out of their seats to go throw something away, it's easier to see that than when another student does the same exact thing. And so we do have to have a conversation. They are not the problem. That is not what the reality is.
Well, I think this is an American problem. If we just take a look at what has happened recently in the media, when we were dealing with the Black Lives Matter movement, you see the amount of police and enforcement that was in place, militarily in place, to counteract anything that the Black Lives movement did. And then when you look at those scoundrels that ran on the Capitol, who look like a lot of the police officers.
It was a revolution.
Yeah, it was just, just in the difference of treatment. So this is systemic across all levels, whether it's the school system or prison system or, judicial system. This is systemic here in America. And so how we were treated as individuals, I went to a school here in Colorado, East High School. I had to put that in there, but it's a very good high school. It was organically integrated. It's a very good school. By the way, it's the school that our first Academy Award winner, Hattie McDaniels, went to. It's the school that Don Cheadle, of my class, who is of the Iron Man movies or the Raid, Rwanda, what was it? Some Rwanda movie and Iron Man. You don't know that. And also the nation's richest African American, Robert Smith. But us being there, it was a lot of drugs, a lot of racism, treated differently. Our white peers had a lot more support and means of getting help with different things and a lot more encouragement than we did. I just think this is systemic of the nation that we live in. Are the questioners here?
Oh, okay. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was about to ask you, Joe, being in the school system here, what are your experiences alike? And it did touch on some of those things. So one of our panelists, can't remember the name, but mentioned earlier that some of the inequities that they have seen, inequities in the curriculum, where culture was not being represented, across the board, just to speak. And I was going to ask you, Joe, if that is something that you have realized. You've been through the school system. Your kids have been through the school system. So my question is, have you seen a difference as far as where maybe the textbooks are concerned? Do you think that the textbook now are more encompassing of culture, minorities, as it was when you were in school?
No, not at all. I sent my kids to schools that were predominantly white, and a lot of the textbooks had very small sections representing African American figures and leaders and such, and it wasn't culturally equal or diverse in a lot of the books that I've seen. But keep in mind, my last kid, he's 22 now, so I understand things are changing. So I understand things are changing, but as far as my kids, no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about policy. And I think it was Alicia, you said you were working with the district. I don't know, I'm getting the feedback. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, yeah, Elder, I think it's coming from you.
Hmm. All right, let me make sure here. I think I'm muted and
Yeah, you are.
I'm
I'm
not sure
hearing it
why.
too.
I only have one microphone that's on.
Okay.
All right. So I was going to ask about policy, and this question was more directed to Alicia. You mentioned that you work with the school district. Um, do you think the policies that are out there right now are minority friendly as far as where education is concerned? Of course, you're not going to have policy that downright suppress one group, but indirectly, and if you were to dig deep, then you will be surprised that, hey, this policy doesn't really favor minorities. Again, I'm not saying that there are policies out there like that. I'm not saying either that there isn't any policies, out there like that. The question is, just from your experience and your position, do you think that the policies, some of these policies that they have out there, doesn't really favor minorities?
I think that I can speak to the schools that I've taught before, because right now the school that I teach now, the policies are to make sure that it is they study it so well that and to this day they're still studying and tweaking it to make sure that it's not unfair to any of the students. You know, whichever, race they are, because now, culturally it has grown. It's no longer really like just black and white students, but now you have, children of immigrants, immigrant children who are also there. So, but for the schools that I've taught in the past, I can say there were some policies that um, were not in favor, and some of them too had to do with, even, let's just say, when you charge. I remember one of the policies at school, but I can't say that is now. But one of the policies when I was in school, the school that I taught, was like, if this child was late, then the parents had to, pay, a fee or something like that, for a tardy fee, which that, can be inconsiderate, because you have some certain parents are in, in an economic, area. They are in an economic place where they are not able to do that, and you're not thinking of that, or or what exactly happened.
Mm.
But I think, to be honest, since, Whitney, you work with Fort Bend, and I know um Fort Bend is a quite diverse area, and I'm sure there are policies that may differ from one to another, but I think she may be able to address that better than me, because I know in my district they really make an effort to make sure the policies are not, unfair to anybody, and because our schools have studied a lot about, pipeline and everything, all of that. They make sure that they are fair, and it's not, um, you know, putting, they're not discriminating anything, not even a tiny bit. So I'm not sure about Fort Bend, but I would love to hear about Fort Bend.
Well, I won't speak for her, but generally speaking, well, I mean, just having worked in a few districts, and in a few different positions, I will say, when you're talking about policy, like you said, there's never going to be an overt policy that is going to be unfavorable towards anybody, especially in school districts, because at the end of the day, school districts, their main goal is to be able to support and care about children. That's the goal of the school district, is to support children as they are growing academically and socially and everything else. However, actively pursuing change that's necessary is what's needed in order to undo the problems that has happened in the past. So really the question is anybody actively pursuing policy to undo the problems that we've already had, is what we're really looking for. Um, And so with that, I will say some of the policies that I think that are more adverse are the ones that are subjective. Um, eh, eh,
Mm.
Whenever you have a subjective policy, then you open the door for inequity, because then it is in the eye of the beholder. It is based off of whatever the person who is writing with the pen decides. Um, so if you don't have a very objective, clear cut, smart written policy that says, if you do this, this happens, this is what this looks like, this is this, then, and you say something like, disrespect, for example, that is ambiguous language, that is subjective. That depends on what they decide is disrespectful. And then along with that, when you're talking about disciplinary policy, if you do not have a clear cut consequence as well, that goes with whatever action, then again, you're leaving it open to be inequitable, because now people are putting their own touch on what I think. I'm fully offended by what you just did, and I'm really mad right now. So, you're going to get the greatest extent of disconnect I give you, where somebody else may not. So whenever you have something that is not clear cut and specifically written, there's going to be room for a lot of error. Um, but with the policy itself, a lot of districts are moving towards trying to find a way to be equitable towards students and looking at what the needs are. For example, like Alicia was saying, my district that I currently work in, I believe it's actually the most diverse district in the country. We have hundreds of languages spoken. Even in my own school, my one school, we have over 100 languages represented in my school. So incredibly diverse. So when you're talking about meeting needs, it gets more difficult when you have such a rich background of different cultures and peoples. And, so they're trying, but it really comes down to that classroom, which is why anybody who is not working in a classroom, their main goal is to support the teachers, whether that's coaching the teachers or supporting them with resources and needs or background or professional learning or whatever, because everything that we do trickles down to the children by trickling through that classroom. And if it doesn't hit that classroom, then how meaningful is it? So what it really comes down to is making sure the teachers have the support and training necessary. They have that cultural competence. They understand their implicit biases in order to make sure that they are carrying out policy the way it's meant to be.
I had a question regarding that. So I remember when I came to the United States and I went to go do this thing called the ACT and the SAT. And when talking about in light of curriculum, and I remember going to take the test for the first time, and I never learned the majority. Are y'all hearing me? The majority of what was on that exam and that test, I was unfamiliar with. So right then, I had a reality check that there was something wrong with what was being taught in the schools that I attend, and other people who were taking the tests in the schools they attend. So in terms of policy, can you guys kind of speak to that? Is that a real example of some of the disparities that's happening in our communities?
So I almost think it's backwards. I don't think that's necessarily saying that there was a problem with the education you received. Not necessarily. I don't know the education you received. There is an idea out here that standardized tests is inequitable, just from the material in there. As far as the content is concerned, there's who decides what's important for everybody to learn? Who makes that decision? How often? Who is the group of people who are coming together to decide and say, this is the information that we believe is pertinent and important for every single student who is going to, depending on the standardized test, go on to this next grade level or go on to college, in order for them to know what is the actual necessary information for them to know. And is that what is going to help you be successful? Anything down to vocabulary. The vocabulary used in these assessments, even the background knowledge that is portrayed in these assessments, usually support people who grow up in higher SES families, higher social economic status families with money, so they understand an oar, OAR is the paddle that you use within a boat. Well, if you have a story and you're talking about how he grabbed the oar quickly because he needed to get out of there, what is an oar? Who is going to know what an oar is? So there's so much vocabulary laced within that a lot of students who do not have that background knowledge or do not have that vocabulary access based off of life experiences is going to trip them up. So there's a lot of, that's been studied a number of times over, and standardized tests. Okay, I'm gonna stop there so Alicia can jump in here. Standardized
straight from the top. So that and unfortunately, those who are way up there are the ones who have to really realize how these tests are really affecting, students of color, and I say that because, it's coming from what, they feel all students should know because of the pattern of education they've had. And a lot of these, that are, doing these standardized testing, are most of them have never been in an area or in a school or anything where, there are students that are either a lower economic or very diverse, kids from other countries and things like, are there, or even also mostly Black students. They don't know. They only hear, but they don't have an understanding at all. So unfortunately, because everything is about data and scores, that's their easy way, I think. And that's just an easy way for them to say, okay, give them this test to see how well, the teachers have taught them and how well they know. But what they don't understand is, they don't understand is for each students that come in, it is different, for those who have different backgrounds and for those who come from, the English is is the second language for them, come and do these tests and you're doing great in your class. You're maybe passing your test and everything that's going in class, but then comes this, standardized testing, and you're like, well, what? It is like they throw these things to you that you don't quite understand. And so it's not really fairly done. And I think they need to take that time to really sit down, throw away these old kind of things, that we've been using for years. And now it's like, what can we use to literally see how well, they are learning instead of these standardized testing. And unfortunately, it's going to take hard work to do. But I think, like I said, it's coming from the top that they really have to really make an effort and look into what's happening into the schools and see who are there, to make sure that those kids feel successful and not feel like they don't fit in, or this is not for me, or see, yeah, I told you I was dumb. I can see that college is not for me. You have to do the opposite. You have to make them feel that, anything they can be successful. And yes, college can be for them if they want it. Yes, you can. And that's the type of mentality or way the top has to think, so that these tests can actually change, and they can come up with some other way to see if the kids are ready for college, or those type of things.
And I, if I can jump back in, and I love how you said that it's an old system. I think a lot of people don't realize how old that standardized testing system is, this idea that I understand how successful somebody will be based off of the score or how much they know. It is not a test that shows how much you know. And I think even going back to standardized test was originally created by psychologists. It's not actually an educational tool. It's used as an educational tool, but way back, it was actually created by psychologists. And they were trying to do exactly what it says. They were trying to standardize kids. They're just trying to figure out where along the standard deviation do you fall. If you compare students one to another, who's doing better than who? It's not actually a show of how much you know or how well you have done, which is why students don't get a percentage. They might get a percent score, but the one that's important is the percentile, which is a measure of comparison. They're trying to get an idea. If we were to take all these kids and line them up, who's doing better than who? And it was based on psychology. And then educators, well, not educators, but politicians picked it up and said, we can use the same test for education and use this as a show of how well the schools are doing, which just has created so many problems and issues for schools because now they're held to that standard that is not a true standard or reflection of what the kids have learned. Because even though now they have in growth measures to measure how much the students have grown, which is very necessary, because if I'm a student who is 3 years below grade level, and that's very common, and I'm 3 years below grade level, I'm a fourth grader, I am currently working and operating successfully on a first grade level. And I take this test. Well, before I would just get a percentile to say I'm in the 8th percentile. 92% of my peers are doing better than me. Okay, well, how do I feel about that? But they're not taking to the account the fact that I was originally on a first grade level. Now I'm on a third grade level. But because I'm taking a fourth grade test, it's just saying you are not fourth grade ready. You are not operating on a fourth grade level. Well, I know that, but can I get credit for the 2 years worth of growth that I've made? And so taking into account those growth measures that they're looking at now, that's great. But the standardized test, unfortunately, a lot of the decisions, like she said, is made from the top. It's made from the top. And it trickles down and negatively affects schools to where schools are closing, it negatively affects schools in so many different ways when it's not truly the best measure of how successful students or schools are.
Man, you guys sound like teachers. So in light of everything you guys been discussing, so I have a question here. So, I mean, you guys, brought up some really good points. I mean, even though a standardized test was created for, by psychologists, I mean, I'm sure there's one thing we all can agree with is that looking at the scores, sometimes it seems as if one ethnic group is performing better than the other. Okay. I'm sure, you will agree with that, to some extent. So that brings me to a next question. What would you say of the question of teaching methodology? Do you think all kids receive information the same? Do you think minority kids receive information the same as Caucasian kids? I guess what I'm trying to get at, do you think that maybe in teachers college, well, it's not teachers college, but do you think in college that there should be some course built in as far as where teaching methodology is concerned as it relates to certain ethnic groups? Would that help? Because I'm wondering if the issue is the kids not understanding or knowing the material, or if they are not processing that material the way that their counterparts are doing. Does that question make sense? Or
if I can say a little bit, because I teach in the district that I teach is mainly minorities, but yet they score well. They score really high. And the question is why? Why do they score high, knowing that others may not? And I think that the part is, let me go back to your question first. When in college, I didn't go into education until I went for my master's, by the way. And so when I went for my master's and went through the education classes, they didn't quite really tell you what exactly is going on in the classrooms, how exactly to reach certain students that may be difficult than the other, how to reach the ones that really have a hard time, learning what you're teaching, like, while others are catching it well, quickly, and how you need to modify many times, the different lessons. I didn't learn that until I came to my district. And when I came to my district, one thing is we the teachers, we have, well, how many meetings a week? We have like 3 meetings a week. We have a meeting within our department. Then we have the meeting with our school. Um, and then we have our one-on-one meetings with our managers. And this is where they always, no matter, even I've been teaching, like I said, 23 years, and I still have a one-on-one meeting, almost every week, not every week, but almost, with my manager. And this is to, when she comes in, they record how you're teaching, they see how you're teaching, they see, what are you doing to reach that kid? And that's
Nice.
the question they always say. What are you doing to reach this kid? And so it challenges you. And one of the things that what happens in some other schools or districts is that sometimes teachers, it is stress, but sometimes teachers do give up, and I hate to say that. There are sometimes that, teachers have tried, but they may not have, I hate to say all the resources, but it's true. They may not have all the resources they need to reach that student, and sometimes they just kind of give up because they're burnt out, because there's so much that they have to do, compared to other districts, and so that's what makes it unfair for that child, because
Yeah.
I don't agree is the child cannot learn. I agree that every child can learn. It's just, how can you reach that child? And sometimes it takes so many different ways. And I've seen that child go through each grade, and you just feel like, man, is this child ever going to? And then all of a sudden it clicks for that child. And then next thing you know, that child graduated from Stetson University. Yeah. And so you have to believe that as a teacher, you have to actually believe like there is hope for that child. That child is going to learn it. It may not be me who will be able to, click that light on that child, but I'm not going to give up on that child,
Right.
And so, and that's the attitude we, the teachers, have to have. That's the first step. That Whitney, I saw you want to say something.
Right.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. Absolutely. Yeah, and with that, you were talking about methodologies, and some, depending on the university, depending on the college, depending on the school, some of them will teach that within teacher education programs or teacher prep programs. But I think what happens though is there's a lot. There's a lot. Essentially, a school, I like to say that schools or districts are pretty much little cities. Okay. Like they're little cities. Within our district, we have pretty much every profession that we have in the city. We have our own tech, we have our own police, we have our own engineers, we have our own. It's a city because we have a town full of little people who our little citizens who we take care of all day long. Like, and so with that, in education preparation programs, we have to learn everything to take care of a city, essentially. So we're not just learning the academics of learning the material ourselves, making sure we know what it is we're teaching, or learning instructional strategies in order to help the students to be able to get the information. We're also learning the behavior management systems of a city. We're also learning, okay, how did the psychology of the system, you have little people, kindergartners coming in, they've never been with other tiny people before, and you have to learn that this is my space and keep your hands off the other little person. Like all of that. So I think what happens is, even in the education preparation programs, whenever they do teach things like methodologies such as, okay, what kind of learner is this? Is this an auditory learner? Is this a visual learner? Is this a kinesthetic learner? Is this a learner who, when you've seen things, they're going to be able to get this better? There are some people who do go through education preparation programs in which they learn that information, but it is so crowded by all of the other information that they are learning. And then they eventually finally go out and get a job. And what's going to come to the forefront of the mind, because it's a lot, especially when you're first going in, is I need to survive. I have 20 something children and let's get them some seats. Okay, let's start there. And so those kind of deeper nuances, like what kind of learner is this child right here? That doesn't come until a teacher gets settled into teaching and gets comfortable with the position they're in, and they're saying, okay, these are my children, and I'm going to do absolutely everything necessary to make sure that every single one of them is successful. And I do believe that every single one of them can be successful. So if you're not having a great day today, I'm going to sit back and think, how can I make this better tomorrow? And then I am going to pull out my tool belt, which is going to include things like, what kind of learner is this child? But before I can get there, you've got to first believe that all of your children are capable, because if you don't, you're not going to stop and say, maybe this method didn't work for them. You're going to say, why aren't you paying attention? So what kind of teacher are you? What kind of a classroom leader are you? What kind of school leader are you? Because you then have to build the teachers up. If there's a bad score that comes from an assessment, it's hard for teachers to say, whoa, I didn't teach this correctly. If 70% of my class didn't do well, this is a me problem. I didn't teach this well. Instead, it's, whoa, what did you all do? But you have to be reflective enough to stop and say, if everybody's doing poorly, this is me. I apologize, honeys. I did not do a good job teaching you this. Let's go back and learn this again, okay? But that takes reflection. It takes a lot of time and learning, and you have to have the administrative support who will allow you to reflect and say, I need to teach this over, as opposed to feeling like you're going to be looked down upon if your kids didn't do well. So again, it's just coming down. And you cannot get to that place of deeper teaching and effective, intentional educational practice until you get through the survival and everything else, and you have a supportive administrative team, instructional staff team, the specialists, everybody who's supporting you, to be able to say, hey, I see you're struggling. Let's look at what kind of learners these are. Now, that's why everybody else in the school who is not directly in the classroom is teacher support. Because when you are saying, whoa, these kids are off today, I'm going to come and say, hey, have you tried this? Let me help you out. Let's talk about it.
Right. Let us hear from
I think
Joe.
Elder Smith wanted to say something.
Joe's been. Yeah.
This is very unique, as we're coming from a teacher's approach, and that's good that there are some teachers out there who want to save the world and are able to sit with a class of 30 people and have the intestinal fortitude to take deep analysis on each child in the classroom and how they learn. But I think that type of teachers like you two are few and far in between. I believe the bulk of the education of our children lies in the household of the child. You see, education starts at home. And I think that us as African American have to take some acceptance that if our kids are following whatever standard it is, if the standard that they have, it needs to change, whatever standard it is, our children must live up to the standard, period. We're not going to lower the standard. It's not going to happen. That's not the way you do it. We must rise our children up to the standard. And I believe that should happen in the home. Obviously, there are some homes where this may not take place. And I get that. We understand that. But I think we're talking on Sabbath. I think we're talking to a bunch of Seventh-day Adventists where we're trying to give advice how these children can be successful. There's a lot of things plaguing the world in general, but let us say as Adventists, there are things that need to happen and take place in our individual churches to ensure that our children meet and live up to the standards. to make sure that our children understand what an or is. Come on, church.
Yeah.
That, you know, we need to be making sure that our children can live up to the standard, whatever the standard is. We are confident, we are capable of having our children not only meet the standard, but to far exceed the standard. So we as a church really need to take a deep look within ourselves and say, listen, if we're having problems with this, do we need to have a math tutoring? We need to have this. In individual homes like my home, where we recognize, I send my kids to private school, but I did not leave it up to teachers. Me and my
Right.
wife did not leave it up to the teachers to hope that they will be able to educate our children. No, there was a division of labor. My wife, she's good with the English and the writing papers and all that kind of stuff. I am math minded. There's a division of labor in which we are ensure that before my child leaves the home, the homework will be done. We're going to review the homework. We're going to go over the homework, and we're going to do a little bit extra. We're going to try and push the child ahead so that tomorrow's lesson that you're going to be studying, we're going to review it at home so that you're going to be able to bring intelligent, heartfelt questions to the teacher where she'll be able to answer. The teacher will hopefully not be bringing this material to you first time. And when you're dealing with the kids on the elementary level, this is possible. It might be more difficult as the kids are going to some higher, in high school, might be getting towards the calculus and some of the different things. But once you start laying that foundation that you're going to be prepared for class, you're going to be ready. If there is a household that know that skill set is not available to prepare the children so that they are ready, not just ready, but beyond a little bit ready, then the church needs to be able to have programs and things in place to strengthen these kids in their weaknesses with math, the English, the sciences, whatever it may be, papers. And that reading is constantly going on. Reading needs to happen in the household. Me as a father, I read early in the morning, and the kids couldn't see it. And my wife, she tells me, I believe in a library. I believe in having books. And now my kids is grown up noticing that they got starting libraries, and that a lot of the books in their libraries are books I've been missing. But that's another story for another time. But we as parents need to be reading. We need to be setting the example, seeking education all the time, seeking knowledge all the time, and setting this example that they will see that this is. In homes that cannot happen, we as parents, we as church members, we should be helping to supplement in some of these areas where our children are failing.
Now, Elder, I'm gonna touch on that part there about the church in a bit because it's a good
I'm
point.
sorry.
No. I'm glad you brought it up because we're gonna talk about that on how we as a church community, can support some of our children in that way. Elder Ian, I'm going to ask a question real quick. I don't know if you have a question, but I want
no, go right ahead. I
Yes.
wanted to comment on Joe, but I'll comment on what he said after.
Okay, so Joe, you touched on something as well about the community that in our homes, that learning has to start in the home, which is so true and so vital. And I'm wondering, is the historical problem of African Americans playing a part in the value of education and some of the things that our children are experiencing in school because of the value of education in our communities? It's just a thought, kind of a question. Was my question clear?
Rephrase it, just rephrase it one time.
So I'm wondering, some of the poor test scores, the academic challenges that we see, particularly among our people, is this a historic problem that we're also dealing with, right? Where because education was denied or was not valued, made something valuable for us and to us. If we learned how to read, that was a crime, and education wasn't so easily accessible. Are we experiencing some of those things today? Are those things being manifested and demonstrated in how we perform academically in our schools?
I believe it is. I believe that um, traditionally, maybe education hasn't been pushed as much as it has should be in the African American community historically. Now, when we're talking, y'all, I think maybe 10 or 20 years ago, I'm not maybe up on to what's happening today, but I know that in my time, a lot of individuals were not, it was just a given that a select amount of individuals were to go on to college. And a lot of others we weren't educated that there were different trade schools that you could go to make a lot of, that you could still generate a real good income. We weren't educated on a lot of that. And so if you didn't go on to college, your next option was potentially a low paying job, and you weren't made aware of all the options that you had. And so if that is kind of an answer to your question from my perspective, I think that traditionally, maybe we as a people have not over the years pushed it. I feel that's changing now. I think that all across the board, that all kids, they want to some way, they in their mind, they have it set, I'm going to college, I'm going to college. And some of them are not ready to go to college, but and some of them don't, and some of them get there and end up generating a bill, and a lot of them don't finish. So I think that's what I know of it.
If I can jump in on this one, I think so. From the educator perspective, really, when we usually address like the home school connection kind of situation, as educators, we usually operate from the standpoint of ignoring all other outside factors because we can't control it. We can't control what is going on or not going on in the home, and we can't. So ignoring all of that, what can we do within this space? Now, as a parent, as well as an educator who communicates with parents, I do believe that there is some of what you talked about, but I don't think it's necessarily that there is a lack of emphasis on education. I think that you don't know what you don't know, and you can't lead somebody somewhere that you've never been. And so, a lot of people used to say, oh, some parents just don't care. That's why they're not doing things at home. And I don't think it's necessarily that they don't care, it's that they don't know. And something as simple as they didn't have it themselves. So something as simple as, how can I help my kids be successful when they hit the gate and they come in kindergarten? So many people don't realize that when you hit kindergarten, most minority children are already behind in kindergarten when they even come in, because kindergarten is set up and created in order to start working on letter knowledge and letter recognition and letter sounds. However, most other households are teaching that at home. So when you come into kindergarten, you're on the curriculum, you're learning your letters, but there are other kids who already know their letters, who've already been hearing books read and seeing and getting access to print knowledge because their families at home are reading to them every single day. So they're getting that access. They're getting thousands, hundreds of thousands more words they know before they even come. Even if they can't spell it, they can't say it, they can't explain it, they know those words already, and they start to move around with the concept. And some of our students don't have it, not because the parents don't care, but because they don't know. They don't know that they can do something as simple as reading one book per day, reading 5 minutes per day, reading 10
or leapfrog.
What'd you say?
Leapfrog, right?
Leapfrog letter factory. Pop it in while they eat breakfast. They're gonna know. They don't know that they can do that and help their child be multiple times more successful, exponentially more successful, until they make it to 4th or 5th grade and say, what can I do to help my child at home? They're already behind, but they don't know. And they don't know how to support them because they didn't have that support, or they didn't have those skills because of those generational issues. And so we just run into it, and then they get frustrated because I don't know how to help my child, and they're not doing well, and I don't know what to do. It's not that they don't care, they just don't know. So
All right. So that's really, really great. You know, Joe opened up that good can of worms, you know, the worms that we need, the good can. you know, when he talked about the home circle. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but I'm going to say, so my first career was a teacher, and I did education. I was in the classroom for a few years, and, I'm not in the classroom anymore, but I did elementary education. And this is what I have realized. But then again, you might argue and say, well, this is not really fair because I only taught in the Adventist school system. I've never taught in the public school system. When I was doing my teaching, public schools in the Adventist school system, the students that tend to do better are the ones where education, some sort of an educational system is in the home. I have definitely realized that. I can almost say that the students that were going to do great back then, it was the ITBS testing, again, because they had that system set up in the home. So when Joe mentioned that, and also Whitney, I'm like, wow, that I think that's the opportunity for success there. Because I have visited homes of parents. Unfortunately, I didn't have all Adventist students in my class. And sometimes when it's time for report, some parents would just never come get a report, even though it's a private school. They're paying the money. You will think that they will come, and they will never come. So I will make visits to the home, and that opened up my eyes to a whole lot of different things. Like, oh, no wonder. I mean, I hope I'm not sounding as if I'm judging. But as you pointed out, Whitney, it's a situation where a lot of these parents, they just don't know, and because of that gap has been developed and it continues. So I think the opportunity, moving forward, and I wish the whole world could, could get on this, is to figure out how can we tap into the home and help out where help is needed. I think there's where the opportunity lies, not only for minorities, but whoever is in that situation where they're not getting that backing from the home. But the home is very, very vital. If the home system is broken down, it's going to be shown in the classroom. Again, from experience, I have seen that. Yeah.
And I think, Ian, and what you all have said is so true, from my own personal experience. I used to share my testimony a whole lot. Now I don't really, this part of it, I don't like to share because I know sometimes people could try to put you in a box. But my education started very late, when I was 14. I was learning how to read at 14, right? And had it not been for the gospel, and me picking up my Bible through daily devotion and
Hallelujah.
praying, you know what I'm saying, and creating a habit of reading. And I want to say, y'all, the Bible is one of the best things that can help you to read. Okay,
come on now.
So read your Bible. And in fact, one writer says that the scripture will elevate your mind like no other book. But up until that point, I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think I was able, until I started to read scripture and develop that habit on my own. But it was also coming from a place where I didn't learn this stuff at home. Nobody sat down with me and helped me with my homework. No one was teaching me how to read. And if they did, y'all know how Caribbeans are. They got so frustrated if I didn't know my letters, I was getting a whooping at the end. Come on, y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
Or hey, they call you dunce. Was in
Yeah,
Trinidad, they call you dunce.
right.
I bet you know your letter. I bet you know your letters. Shoot.
You know, and so learning was this horrible, fearful. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, you talking about anxiety. You know, and so the environment was just not suited or conducive to my growth. And I really started excelling, you know, at the end of high school, towards college, graduate schools. And I thank God for the gospel, right? And I just want to make a quick plug that the gospel, man, no matter how late in life you start, it can really turn your life around and put you on track and get you up to speed. And so I just want to put a plug in for Jesus at the moment.
Amen.
But it is
That
so
plug in,
true.
put it in.
Yeah, but it's so true that the home has to be
Yeah.
you know, and we have to help let people know. And I hope, you know, I really pray that you know, and as I'm listening as a pastor, I'm thinking, man, especially with our people, these are conversations that we need to be having from the pulpit, right? You know, read to your kids once a day, as Whitney was saying. You know, put on Leapfrog. You know, these are things that need to be said, because maybe some of the people in our audience never been taught that. They don't know, right? And so we got, and I think all those things are the total gospel, right? And that's why it makes sense when Moses says, listen, read the scrolls to your kids, right? And when they're coming out of Egypt, you know, share with them what God has done for you. You know, make sure they memorize the
Yes,
Torah,
sir.
right?
Yes,
So
sir.
that, because it impacted their learning and their development. And I think we have to do that in a modern way, even from the pulpit.
All right, all right. We haven't heard from Alicia for a while. How you doing, Alicia?
Wanted to
I think
say
you're
too,
mute. Oh, there you go. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think also one of the things that I would love to see our churches do is come together and even do like tutoring sections or do certain things, you know, to help our young ones. Because even if, you know, when the kids get to middle school, to be honest, a lot of parents do not know how to help. By the time they're middle school, they're like, ooh, that math is different from where I was in
Yeah.
school. I
Yeah.
can't help you, you know? And so, but they don't have sometimes they don't even have the money to be able to get that tutor, you know? And so that also is something that it makes it difficult for that kid. So the parents are frustrated, the kid is frustrated, and what does the kid does? They give up. You know,
Right.
so I think it would be great to, if as the church will come, you know, also and do some, you know, help with tutoring, you know, you know, for the kids, for the students and the children in their churches or even the community, you know, and that would really help out, you know, for the parents as well. And if you're, you know, if you were that, because I know that was one of the questions, is how can the church be involved with, you know, with the children's education? And you know, I know we have Sabbath school and things like that, but I think another way too is, you know, hey, if you have prayers, you know, prayers meeting, maybe that night when you have prayers meeting, parents, you know, we also have tutoring too, something like that, for they can bring their children and the children can be
Man.
tutored as well on the subject that they're challenging with. And they can see now, okay, my parents care. Oh, I can now understand this. So I can actually do better in school and ace that test that's coming up, you know, and things like that. So that's,
Man.
I mean, that's a way, one of the ways I feel that a church can really help with a child's education.
I
Man.
just want to
Somebody
break
need
out
to
in
hear
a
this.
praise
Somebody need
praise
to hear
break
this.
with that comment. That's a
Amen.
praise break
Amen.
worthy
Amen.
comment right there.
Amen. That was a good one. Prayer
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We got to
And
get
I
this
think,
recording out on Facebook.
oh, yeah, and if I can add to, come on, Alicia, if
Yeah.
I can, if I can add to that too, because like she said, a lot of parents can't afford tutoring whenever their kids need, you know, that extra push. But I mean, something that is generally free, like if you have children in your church, every child should have a mentor. Like every child should have a mentor or mentors, people who pour into their lives. Because as we were talking earlier about the different disparities, some of it is academic, but there's a lot of social emotional issues in there there's some SES issues in there that are playing in. So when you start linking up these children with other adults, they need to know that there are adults who care about me. There are adults who love me. There are adults who are rooting for me, because if those kids love you, they will do anything for you. They
Yeah.
will do absolutely anything for you. So if they start falling off track and you say, hey, what's going on? Let's get this work done. They're going to say, okay. And they're
That
going
is
to
so
have
true.
more people getting on them. And they're going to have even more motivation to move it and be successful because of those individuals in their lives who care about them. And not only that, but whenever they are trying to make decisions, whenever they start going to the other side, the social, the spiritual, they have people in place who are praying for them, who care about them, and also show them access to maybe a life they don't have. So if you have a mentor who's saying, hey, let's go to the, you can't go in there now, it's coronavirus, but let's go to Sky Zone. Maybe they've never been to Sky Zone. Let's go to a ball game. Maybe they've never been to a ball game. So now they're having access and exposure to places and things that they've never done before, maybe they weren't interested in. So, I mean, just that mentor relationship, it can be the world to kids.
Man, amen
Yeah,
to that.
that's a really, really great point. Now, so just quickly, this program, I know the advertise says in an hour. It never lasts an hour. It lasts an hour and a half, and I keep saying I need to change that on the fly every time I put it out, and I just keep forgetting. But it has never ever lasted an hour in the 6 weeks we've been doing it or so. So is it okay to stay on for 15 more minutes or so?
Yes, I would say so, Elder.
Okay, sounds good. Wanted to touch up, just to touch base with you. And next week, moving up, I'll be sure to put that time on the flyer and also let the
Just say
participants know.
let's just say 5 and beyond.
Yeah, because the information is so great here, and I'm just
Yeah.
saying here, this is only broadcasting on YouTube. And Pass, I don't know if there are any questions on YouTube. I don't have my other laptop next to me because I'm not sure if that was giving the feedback, but I put it in another room, so maybe you can navigate on YouTube just to make sure there isn't any questions. But I have another question here. Just changing, shift a little bit. So, Joe, growing up in school, how many of your teachers were Black? And if so, did that have an impact on you growing up in the school system and learning?
Not, I would say maybe 10% of my teachers were Black. And interesting story, my counselor was Black. His name was Jerome Biffle. He was an Olympic gold medalist.
Oh, wow.
Track runner. And honestly, I'd like to say more, but I recognize that I think I heard Whitney say that the teachers may be tired or overloaded. I think that there's an unconscious effort that individuals might feel if they see what the child's attitude is, that they might link on to that. If they see the child may have an attitude or might not want to be there, the teacher automatically might not count that child as worth expending a lot of energy on. And I think how our children come to school, the attitudes, I think as my attitude improved, as I showed a good positive attitude at school, I got a lot more help. And I think that our children might have some attitudinal, some of our children might have attitudinal issues. And I think that might affect the way that they are perceived by teachers and everything. But the bottom line, 10% of my teachers were Black. And I think I was judged, since our class sizes were so high, I think we were judged on our attitude. If we were worthy of expending a lot of energy on.
Okay. So Alicia and Whitney, do you, same type of question, being teachers, Black teachers, do you think how should I put it? The question I'm thinking is connectivity between you and students of minority, comparing that with you and other students, from the student standpoint, that is. Do you think students tend to gravitate towards you, more students who are the same ethnicity background, such as yourself? Do you think they gravitate more towards you? Because in my mind, I'm thinking if that's the case, then yeah, it's an opportunity there, as Joe was talking about, and as you mentioned earlier, that love will grow and that mentorship, will go to that. In my experience, my whole school was pretty black, pretty much black, when I was there. So I didn't have that opportunity. But just a question I'm throwing out there: race of the teacher and students, as far as where learning is concerned, an opportunity to mentor and just get into their heads. Is there any advantage in that, or have you experienced anything like that? Rock, paper, scissors. Whitney,
I
you
think
up.
we did the same thing just now.
I was
Okay,
gonna
got
say,
Alicia.
yes, there are. I have seen it, especially, I'm gonna go especially with Black male teachers. I've seen that. I have seen that sometimes, like for me, if there's a student that I'm having a hard time connecting with in my classroom, and I am a woman, and sometimes I can be a bit emotional, not tear emotional, but just like there's an emotion side that does not click with my male student, you know. And a lot of times I have gone to my Black male counterpart teachers and I let them know, like, I'm trying to connect with him, but I feel like we cannot connect. What can I do? And I've asked that teacher to come into my classroom and see what I'm doing, to see, what is it that I'm doing that, I'm not connecting with that student. And because there was one student I just could not connect at all. And it was like just rocks, and I hated being that teacher that sometimes say, today you need to step out, and I hated doing that with him. And so what I found out was that it's that there was that when the teacher came in and stepped in and walked, and saw, he told me, he said, um, what he saw was that I was almost like a mother. Okay? Like I was that mother going towards him. And we know sometimes how mothers can be with their sons, right? We can be sometimes a little bit overbearing, a little bit dramatic, something, there's things, and that sometimes we need the fathers to come and step in. And
Come on
so,
now.
and yeah, and so, and that's what was happening between this student and I. Can I say now that this student and I, to this day, this student now, he's done, he's now in college. And he sometimes stops by, well, now we're in COVID, so let's say last year, he would stop by. Hey, Miss Jones, Joe would stop by. I'm on my way. I saw this school and I wanted to say hi, and you know, but it took for me to go and, to go to the teacher, to the male teacher and ask him. And so I'm saying this, and I do feel like students do gravitate more towards teachers that are there, towards their similar race, because that you can understand them better. Because sometimes, I'll just say it, sometimes white teachers think like, oh, they're being too emotional. No, they're not. No, really, they're not. They're just being them,
Right.
and you've got to understand what that is, and stop looking at it that way, and so we do need more in the classrooms. And I feel like we do need more Black males in the classroom, especially elementary and middle school. We need them, because I know I can say middle school is a tough year. And the males and females too, who don't have a male, male figure in their home, they need to see a male figure. They need to have a relationship in a way that they can understand how to speak to one another, or how they, can be treated, or who they can speak to, or feel like they can understand, or actually say certain things that they make them feel uncomfortable. I've had students come to me and say, Miss, I didn't like how such and such talked about this. It made me feel uncomfortable. I don't think that teacher understood that, what she was saying made us as Black kids feel uncomfortable. And I've had to have that conversation with that teacher who didn't know from herself that she was actually teaching in a way that it was making the Black kids uncomfortable, and so you that's why it's important for teachers, if you're Hispanic, if you're Black, anything, of color, we need more of you in the classroom, because the kids need to feel safe. Sometimes they need someone to speak to, or feel like you understand me, or if they need someone that they can go to, for several different reasons.
Yeah,
That
and
is such
I
a
have
great point.
a,
Yeah, one could. I just have so I'm not going to share them, but I have lots of stories that I could share in my connection to the Black male students that I've had, even up to this day. They graduate from college, and they're doing great, and we still stay in connection up to today. I've had parents who have come to me and asked me, "Can you talk to XYZ?" And that build a rapport. Leaving the schools was a tough decision. As I said, I taught in a church school. The conference didn't want me to leave. They try everything to keep me, and I gave another year. Then I eventually left. I didn't leave because I didn't like it or anything, But just to your point, that male student bonding, male teacher bonding with other male students, it's I have tons of stories, positive stories that I can give. So I just want to, piggyback on that. And so you're right on target with that. All right, Whitney. Yeah, you had.
Oh, I was just agreeing as well and saying that I definitely do think that a lot of times students will gravitate towards people who look like them, and not even just race, whether it be gender. It might be something as simple as like religion, even.
Right.
So again, my school is very diverse, and so like whenever you have somebody who's, oh, okay, this person's Jewish too, or this person's Muslim too, like you'll realize that they have a level of comfort and safety, so that then speaks to us to know that we do need to make sure that we have a very diverse set of teachers in schools, because all these kids need to be able to be supported and feel that level of safety. And so representation is everything. It
Yeah.
really is, because even if those kids don't gravitate to you, they're watching you. They're paying attention to you.
Oh,
They're
man,
looking at everything that you do.
I'm
And
here to tell you.
and I like even something, I have a few little girls who look like me who they come looking for me very often. And pre-corona. But something I realized is there was this one little young lady, and she came, she had her hoodie on, and she just looked drawn. I'm like, what's going on? And she didn't want to take it off. Okay. Well, she didn't like her hair. And I mean, it was a twist out. It was cute, but she didn't like her hair. And very diverse school. So there's a lot of people with the flowing hair and straight, fine hair. And I was like, your hair is beautiful. And she was like, whatever. Well, the next day I'm coming with a twist out, because representation is everything. So I had my twist out ready, and she was like, oh, your hair is beautiful. I was like, oh, thank you. I had a twist out for about 2 weeks. I'm like, whenever I see they're having those image issues, okay, especially with the little dark skinned girls, especially, they're saying, oh, my skin is ugly. Different things like that. But they'll say, well, you're beautiful, but I'm not. Well, okay, I'm going to jump in here because you are looking at me like, whoa, I love you, but I don't love myself. So anything I can do to use my imagery and to use my representation to support you as a child who looks like me, I'm going to do that. But we need to make sure we've covered our bases. And those Black men are essential, absolutely essential, not even just from that same standpoint of equal representation, but even more so, because not only do little precious Black boys not see a lot of Black males in schools, most children, period, don't really have a lot of exposure to Black men in different spaces. Women are everywhere. We are everywhere. And any capacity that deals with children, anywhere you go where children go, women are always there in huge numbers. We man those places. Men are usually not, especially Black men. So children are used to us. They're used to experiences with us. But when they see Black men, they're in awe. They're like, all of them. The little Black boys, the little Black girls, the minor, all of them, they're like, oh, it's like a superhero. So like we definitely do. We need as many as we can,
Hey, the education system need to make the incentive more attractive. I'm just playing. Pay the black teachers more, the black male teachers more. Nah. Well, you know, it's oh, good, Al. You're gonna say something?
And I was just gonna say, I think we're running out of time here.
Yes. I'm just going to say, you know, it's about 5, almost 5:30. So I just wanted to give you guys at least one last chance to just give a closing remarks. You've given so much positive reviews and information. As I said, I'm gonna get this recording on Facebook. Normally it is, but you know, all of my equipment is not up and running right today. You know, so that's why it's only running on YouTube. But I just wanted to give you, you know, each of the panels at least, you know, less than a minute, if you could just give, you know, a positive closing remark, and then we'll close it off. So I guess we will start with no more rock, paper, scissors. We'll start with Alicia first. I think you're mute, Alicia.
Start with the parents. It's a closing remark. Is for the parents to be more visible, you know, with their students and also with the teachers. Because one thing is, if the teachers know that you are there, you know, they'll make sure that your child is okay. They'll make sure that your child is succeeding. They won't ignore your child in any kind of way, and you won't be surprised with certain grades. So be there, show them that you care, because also it'll make sure that the teacher is doing right by you as well. And so that's my part as a mother too, and as a teacher. When I see parents really, you know, emailing and checking and things, I respect that even more, you know, with that. And it, you know, keeps me on my toes as well. So please be active in the child's education. I know as Zoom, some of your kids are online or et cetera nowadays, but still be there. You know, ask questions to the teachers, you know, make contact so that your child will succeed. And also they see that you and the teacher really care for them.
Great point. All right, Whitney.
Likewise to the parents, the school's job career is to teach, yes. However, that education that the children receive, everybody benefits from it. And that's like your life passion. So even though it's the school's job to teach, that education is essential at home, especially for all of the many things outside of the academic curriculums that you want them to learn. So spend that time with your children at home, teaching them whatever you think is important. Whatever it is that's of importance and value to you in your home, teach it to your children. Like, give them that. Read to your children. Read with your children every single day, because even though they're learning at school, you are propelling them so much further than they will be with just a school education. So enjoy that time with them, to make it fun. Don't do like the Caribbean parents and no, make it fun. No stress, no pressure. And then as far as the church is concerned, so hey, wherever you can support and be of a great help, like, it's all hands on deck when it comes to our kids, because they're all of our kids. They are our present and our future. Like, we all own them. Like, so let's do what we need to do.
All right, Elder Joe.
Yes, I would like to say that our kids are smart, they're intelligent, they're capable and competent to learn whatever we put before them. And we need to start early, and we need to start at home to ensure that we get them the necessary information. If we do not know what they should be learning, I suggest talking to the pastor. If you feel that there's information that needs to be, that they might not be getting at home and may need for school, I suggest bringing it to the pastor or one of the elders and presenting this point. I know that in every church, a team could be built that could help each and every child to not only be at grade level, but to exceed grade level. We as African Americans are held at a higher standard. We need to be able to do more.
Yes, sir.
For half. And It's something that right now it's not right, it's not fair, but we got to accept. And I think we could live up to that. I think that we are competent and capable to do great things. And so just believe it. Let your child believe he's smart and he's able to do it. Keep books before him, keep math and science before them, and keep encouraging them and pressuring them. There's a lot. I ain't been to the Caribbean, but I think my mother had some Caribbean spirit in her, because
Well,
you could just about get cussed out if you got to ask her the same question twice. But guess what? Our kids are tough. They can handle a little chastisement,
right.
whatever your teaching method is. They know that you love them, and don't leave them to their own vices and efforts to learn. We can have some children that excel.
Amen. Amen. So I'll just wrap it up and I give the final closing remarks to the pastor to close it off. And, if the panelists will just stay on for maybe a minute or two afterwards, after I close the live session. Again, guys, this information has been so vital. Week after week, we've been getting some great information. And I know our listeners, our viewers, they have been edified, because our program is the Edification Hour, where information is power. And we have been getting information week after week. And today has been no different. So I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out and just edifying us. Preacher?
Yeah, thank you, Il, and thank you, Ian, and the panelists as well. And I just want to encourage somebody that who may be listening today. It's never too late to start. Jesus is a God of second chances, and he can take you from where you are and bring you to where you need to be. And I'm a living witness of that. And so, read the word. And if you need help, reach out to our church, and we're going to try to do our best to put things in place to help our members and the community. With that, I want to say thank you all for watching today. We're going to end with prayer at this time. Father, we are so thankful for edifying us today, God, and we just pray that as a church, as a community, that we may continue to be an asset to those around us. God, we pray, help us to be a resource and a light to those in our communities, Lord, particularly minorities. And I just pray in the name of Jesus, continue to bless us. And we just pray, Father, that you may be with each of the panelists as well. We thank you for hearing our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. We'll see you again. May God continue to bless each and every one of you.